Welcome to lesson 17 of Financial Sobriety School. So excited you're here today. I love this topic, and I mostly love the topic because I think it's so relatable. So today I'm going to talk about Oniomania. And have you ever heard of it? I've spoken about it a few times, but really started to dive in on like what it actually means. What does it mean for us who struggle with it? So, Oniomania is essentially, and I think right away to the book series, The Shopaholic. And someone who identifies and feels comfortable with the term alcoholic, which is something that I'm in recovery from. It feels very similar, right? So, Oniomania, and also known as CBD, which of course we're all going to think of like the oils and stuff, but no, CBD meaning compulsive buying disorder. And did you, when you heard me say that's what Oniomania was, how did that land for you? Did it sound like, oh my God, now all of a sudden there actually is a term, a medical term that describes what I'm feeling? So there's a lot of like quote unquote disorders, and often there's so much shame attached to when we get diagnosed with something. And it's quite new to be describing overspending, addictive spending, compulsive spending, being a medical condition. But just in regards to like the addiction world in general, it totally makes sense. But there's often so much shame attached to when you get diagnosed or even think that you have some sort of disorder. Like, let's say, for example, bipolar disorder. And some people, when they get, diagnosed with that, so much shame is attached to that. And just really like, it feels like a bottom. It feels like, oh my goodness, that's overwhelming, and that's not who I am as a person. And then there's the other side of it, which me as someone who has been a money coach for almost 7 years now, just over, that it actually puts a name to something that so many people are struggling with, which I think then is it starts to normalize it a little bit. And it doesn't feel like it's unique just to you because you're not alone. This is exactly why I do the work I do, is because we just stay stuck in that shame a lot and that cycle of shame, buying, shame, buying, and then we get like, "Oh, we're gonna return a bunch of stuff." Um, Thinking like, "Okay, that makes it better if I buy it and then return it," which is great, don't get me wrong about that, but when can we get to a point where you're actually not buying so you don't have to return stuff? But backing up to Oniomania and it now being something that is put out into, the world of something that a lot of people struggle with. And the one thing that I thought was really great about it, again, it gives us something that we can say, like, oh, hey, yeah, that's exactly what I struggle with. So, compulsive buying disorder being that you're excessively buying things, you are mindlessly buying things, there's a lot of impulse spending happening, and it's something that's starting to really negatively like affecting your life. And is that because you are spending your paycheck before you get it? Is it you're just completely relying on credit cards and that spending addiction and everything that you are shopping is getting put on a credit card and then that debt is keeping you up at night? Is your spending habits keeping you up at night? I know mine did, and there's still moments where and I love to share that when it comes to me and my spending, I am by no means perfect, and I don't think that there actually is a perfect world of, like, I'm healed, right? healed and my spending is like in check. I have very impulsive moments. And what's beautiful about it is that I can now notice those moments. And that is the work. That is the work of us being like, ooh, there it is. There's that trigger. And so a lot of times with oniomania, compulsive buying disorder, shopaholics, there is an emotional underlying issue that we're trying to numb. So also like if you are in recovery from alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex addiction, all the things that we can be in recovery from, depression. A lot of us who have depression, anxiety, that's something that I struggle with a lot, the anxiety part. Um, Especially since I came into recovery because I wasn't able to numb out with alcohol anymore. And so that's when the spending picked up. And again, that underlying emotional need that we're trying to soothe with buying things. Does that sound like something you're struggling with? And if it is, I see you. You matter. What you're feeling matters. And it's really, really important to start to be curious about what your spending habits are. Because what I'll say is over everything, what the work is us being able to notice our triggers and really like respond to them and being present with it. And those of us who struggle with a shopping addiction, being present is really, really hard. Let's be honest, like being present in life is really, really hard. I recently just my phone and um I'm an addict, right? Like and I feel comfortable saying that word because I have very, very addictive behaviors. And my phone is something that I was finding, caused me a ton of anxiety, and my attention span has been really, really short, and I know part of that's perimenopause, but I'm not gonna get into that because that's also something I'm in recovery from. But I found that, like, I was constantly reaching for my phone, and because I run a business and run, a lot of stuff online on social media, like, that's a part of what I do for my business. But there becomes a time, like, we talk about, like, doom scrolling, right? And it's just one of those things that leaves us completely outside of ourselves and, like, immersed into a different world and numbing out. I saw a meme the other day, and it was like, somebody that they were at their grandma and grandpa's house or maybe their parents' house, and it was 2 very elderly people, and they were both, like, on the couch, head down, looking at their phones, and it was like, "Oh, young people these days and how much time they spend on their phones." But we are all experiencing that with our phones, being completely addicted to our phones. What I want to say is if there's anybody out there that wants to start um, running a business that helps people with the addiction to their phones, because I have not seen a person doing that yet, and I believe that, like, the world needs that. Just like I think that the work I do with Financial Sobriety School is work that needs to be out there. So anybody want a business idea, addiction to phones, escaping, doom scrolling, I've definitely had to put some real parameters around it. And so even like it's our phone, it's food, it's spending, it's like the list can just go on and on. And for me, like my addictive behavior, I can latch onto something and just like hold on for dear life and try to avoid feeling, trying to avoid life, trying to avoid stress, trying to quiet my mind down because of my anxiety. My mind races constantly. And I work so hard at trying to just like quiet it down and using my somatic tools that I know are going to help support me. And I think that again, that the work of what it comes down to with our shopping addictions and our impulse spending is really about really being able to understand what's going on. If we are, and that's why a lot of times like people will be like, okay, we're going to do a budget and we're going to, which I hate that word. We don't like, nope, thanks. Spending plan. That's what I like to call it because we want to choose what we're going to spend our money on. So when it comes to that, I can do that like right away. If it's like in my work, I automatically run into the numbers and like, this is your spending plan and you got to stick to it and have fun. Away you go. And that is no help at all, right? Because then it's like, "Oh my goodness, I can't stay within this spending plan because, like, I have all this compulsive behavior, and I'm impulse shopping, and I'm trying to feel better when I spend money, and I absolutely, like, put another $1,000 on my credit card this week." And it reminds me of, Gabor Mate and his if you ha his book, recently that he has written. It came out last year, I think, and it was called The Myth of Normal. And talking about I love his take on addiction, and don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. Why is there pain? What are you trying to fill? What's that hole that's there? Why is it there? And, you know, a lot of people, loneliness, boredom, anger, anxiety, they all are part of what keeps us stuck in a cycle of trying to numb the pain. What's the pain? Why is there pain? What happened? What's happening? And I know for sure that this is the most vulnerable, brave, scary, downright frightening steps to be able to start to look at our financial sobriety. I acknowledge that and I honor that because I know it's hard. And I know for me, when I finally was like, hey, I got a problem. What is going on? And being able to just say it out loud, being able to just talk about it. When I have consultations with people or I see people, I went recently to a goddess circle here on Vancouver Island, and one of the women there actually was familiar with my work. And just being able to like say that she knows my work and it's something she really wants to work on was just something that was so powerful for her to say it out loud. And once we start to say things out loud, it gives it power. It gives it power to start that process of healing. And I know, again, I will say it again, it is vulnerable, it is brave, it is courageous to look at this and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this. And just like anything that we are in recovery from, we need support. We need to be able to say it out loud. And I think it's really, really important that, now that it actually has a diagnosis of like oniomania, compulsive buying disorder, does that bring on more shame for you? Or does it answer some questions and think like, okay, yeah, I can deal with this. I want to deal with this. Right. Just like if somebody gets diagnosed with, like I said before, like bipolar disorder, once we understand exactly what's going on, it's like, okay, how can we deal with it? So if this is something that you're listening to, watching, reading, as a lesson and you think it's something that you're struggling with, what support can you put into place to help you? And of course, I'm here to support. My next group coaching or a group class is going to be starting just over a week and a half. And it's actually about shopping addictions and breaking free of that and stopping that cycle. So you can check that out on my website, lindaparmar.com/breaking free. I'll also put the link to it in the show notes here. But, even having a conversation with your significant other, having a conversation with a friend. Are you a part of a community that maybe you can put it out there online or somewhere where you need some support? I have a Facebook group called Financial Sobriety School, and just as simple as that we have quite a few women in there, and all struggle with our money and our spending. And is that somewhere where you could come for some support? It is a real thing. We now have a diagnosis. I could have diagnosed you anyways if you were thinking like, "Oh god, this is something that I'm struggling with the overspending." So, but saying I have a shopping addiction or saying I have oniomania or saying I'm reaching outside of myself to feel better. I'm trying to heal and spending makes me feel better. How does that show up for you? So, invitation to pull out your journal and maybe think about what are your shopping habits? What does that look like in regards to how you spend your money? Do you charge a lot of stuff on your credit cards? Do you feel like it's out of control? Is it negatively affecting your life? Is it something you need support with? You can go on my website as well, lindaparmar.com, Financial Sobriety School, and you can book a 30-minute call with me as well. Again, sometimes just saying it out loud and seeking support is so brave and so amazing. And it would be an honor if you wanted to have a conversation. Oniomania, it's a thing. We have a disorder now within the medical community, and you are not alone. You matter. I see you, and your feelings are super valid. Thank you so much for checking out the lesson today, lesson 17. So excited that you were here. And if you want to check out the details of the new group class, lindaparmar.com/breaking free. Have a great day. Bye.